So here's the end results. This video is going to be more on how not to do it than how to do it right. Eventually I got everything to work, but if you're regularly watching mine for the electronics parts, you might want to skip this video uh, because there's very little of electronics involved. And a lot of it is just me making mistakes one after another. I'm pretty sure an 8-year-old could have made the mushrooms much more efficiently than I did. So there will be the times in the corner showing the different, chapters. This video here, I finally got it to where you're getting close to the colors that I'm seeing. Now, this one is just a straight green, and this is a slow red, green, blue LED. So right now, okay, that's pink there. Pretty well white now. Almost no blue. Then, okay, this is a deep red. That's actually coming through fine. Yellowish, green, blue now, but nowhere near as dark as what's on the camera. So, as I say, take a look at the times, jump through it. There's a lot of mistakes made on this one. Well, the first step in making my LED mushrooms is to get some Christmas ornaments or mushroom ornaments. Remove this part. You're not going to want glass. And then I need to cut that part off. Like that. Now, I had a file to do it. You're going to have to figure out which is the best way to do it for yourself. One thing is on these plastic ones, you don't want to apply too much pressure. Otherwise, you might dent the side of it. And I'll have to see if I can get that dent out. So I'm going to make 2 of these up first, and then we'll go to making the mold. What I'm going to do for filling these holes is use a hot glue gun, just so that I can make this a fairly smooth surface. So once you've got them smoothed off as much as you can, it's now time to give it a coating of this one, or whatever else one you have as a mold release agent. And I'm going to be doing this outside. And I recommend you put on some gloves for doing that spraying. Might as well keep the stuff off you. What I'm using here, you can use wax paper for setting it on, or in my case I'm using parchment paper. And the next step is to put a layer of this on. And what I'll be doing is building up layers. You put each layer on, let it dry, put the next on, let it dry. Well, my container of mold building stuff is old. This should be able to be brushed on. Not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna over apply a huge amount of it and then let it sit for a day or two. Okay, backup plan. I'm going to make one Plaster of Paris mold of this one. I had to drill a hole to pop it out. You have to remember that when you're using this, you can't have overhangs. With that, you can actually flex it out, but not with this. So, following the instructions on here, with water, make up a batch of Plaster of Paris. After following exact instructions on mixing, I poured it into this. Nope, I'm going to need a bit more. Oops. What's important is that since This thing here is hollow. It's going to want to float. So you push down as far as you can like that. And then you're going to have to preferably think about this beforehand and weight it down. Yeah, that didn't work too well. But it looks like it's already starting to set up. And then what I'll do is I'll just grind off what I don't need. Good idea would be not to follow my example. Well, it's now time to try to get it out of this mold. I haven't let it harden up completely, mainly because I want to make it a tiny bit easier to take out. I should be able to just rough up these edges and get it to pop out. There we go. Clean out a bit of the garbage. Well, at least one of them worked. It'll be interesting once this dries more. When I try, I'll probably have to use the release stuff when I pour the liquid plastic in there. So it's going to sit for another 4, 5, 6 hours. These two molds failed. Essentially, there was too many air gaps, so it doesn't give a nice smooth surface. This one's looking pretty good. I guess I should turn some lights back on. So what I'm going to do, it's still not 100% dry, is I'm going to give it a spray of the release agent, and then I'm going to try to fill up a small part of it with hot glue. So let's see how well this works. Not too bad for a mushroom. So what I'll have to do is create some stalks for them. It'll be like that. But what I'll do is I'll put in the LED in here and then slowly build the stalk down with the wires coming out. And then it'll go to the rest of the circuit. Okay, we're on plan D here. I took 2 small diameter hot glue sticks, put them in the mold, or chopped them up, stuck them in the mold. Oven is at 300 degrees, and now I'll let them melt. Looks like my hot glue of the crystal clear type is of the high temperature type. So at 400 it's forming a bit of a puddle, but still barely, so up to 450 Fahrenheit. Well, it's time to pull it out and let it cool off for a bit. One nice thing is, since it's now winter here in Canada, this is 100% energy efficient, since all the heat is just heating the house. Let's try a bit more brute force. Hoping what it'll do is it'll just pop back into its shape once I get it out. Oh, there we go. And that is what I want. And I should just be able to use some heat to make this a bit clearer. I'm going to try this again, but using this one here, which I believe's got a much lower melt point. And we'll see how that goes. This will be edited heavily. So here's the next load to go in, and we'll see how that comes out. Second one turned into a disaster. So I'm just gonna chuck it back in there and let it heat up. And for some reason it actually even stuck to the mold. Try again. So I'm going to try to clear up the surface on this by just applying at its hot temperature. See if I can actually get this to go a tiny bit clearer by removing some of the rough spots. Seems to be a lot of bubbles on the inside of this. And I'm on a time constraint for this one. I don't want the missus to see what I'm using the kitchen gloves for. And I think it's improved it a bit. I don't have to, oops, oh no. Well, it's natural now. It's got a few imperfections. Well, that's good enough. Yeah, I think letting it completely harden was a bad idea. But let's see if I can get it out. This thing's not going to come out. I think you need to take it out when it's still pretty flexible. Oops. Oh well. This mold's as good as dead. So, I'll just break it apart. And I'm going to do this off camera. On second thoughts, it's just going to pop out. Mold's destroyed though. And by the looks of this, I can probably wash it off and then use the heat on it. And I'll have had 2 mushrooms out of this mold. So here's the second mushroom cap. I washed it in vinegar to help remove some of the stuff. And now I'll just give it a quick shot with heat and see if it cleans it up to like this up here. So this time I'm using a parchment paper underneath it so that I don't melt it onto the gloves like the other one. This seems to actually be working not too bad. It's not coming out as clear as I'd hoped, but and parchment paper is good to around 450 degrees. And if you're baking, remember parchment paper is not the same thing as wax paper. That's not too bad. I think I'll go with that. Well, sometimes old stock is garbage. The one on the left here, I picked up, I believe, 2 years ago. So it's a new LED, new technology, all of that stuff. And the other one is from one of my bags that's probably about, minimum 20 years ago. Now, take a look at the difference in the intensity. The one on the right, which is very old stock. Uh, Barely lights up, whereas the one on the left is swamping the camera. The old stock one is running at 20 milliamps, and the new one was at about 2.5 milliamps. So sometimes old stock just really isn't worth using. So one of them's going to be red, new stock also, and the other mushroom will be green. So I've wired up two of these. I've got the anode going to the yellow wire and the cathode to the white. And I've decided instead of using the red, I've substituted in red, green, blue slow flash LED. And now it's a matter of sticking them on here, which I'm probably just going to do off camera. Once the LEDs hot glued in place, I actually use the parchment paper for the base so that, and I'll show you the stock. But by putting on the stock, just doing it one row at a time going down, or up, since holding it the other way around, and that way you can build it up and then blob up a whole bunch at the bottom, and then smack it down onto the parchment paper and then build it up, and it should peel off the parchment paper quite nicely. You'll probably want to add something coming out a bit in case you want to fasten it down nice and securely. So it just peels off quite nicely off the parchment paper. I'll obviously have some trimming to do. Kind of looks like a mushroom. And let's see if it'll just... Yeah, you might want to make this base area as big as you can where it'll look good still. But it sits quite nicely. So on to the next one. And I'll just show the start of it. It's just too hard to work with the camera here. And then just slowly build it up like that. And you have to leave some time between each layer because you don't want to keep melting the stuff below. And I'll probably edit this for time. And hit the camera, of course. And you also want to make sure that you don't cook your LED. And there's number 2. I'll still have to do some trimming. And it should sit up right. Good.